The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
New anthem, California Love Part 2. To live in Don, LA, West Side, West Side, West Side. To live in Don, LA, where everybody try to fatten their pocket. So many hustle for the cash, so it's hard to knock it. Everybody got their own thing, currency chasing. Worldwide through the hard times, worrying faces.
Well, hello. God bless you, community family, and welcome to Gang Talk with Sister Herron, Skipp Townsend. As you can see, Skipp is back tonight. Welcome home, Skipp.
Thank you, sister.
Okay.
I give all honor and praise to God. Glad to be here.
And we do, too, because he turned your behind around, didn't he?
Yes,
and gave you back to us.
I like to think he turned my head around. No, my behind followed, you know.
He turned everything around.
Right.
Okay, and we're just so grateful because you've been doing outstanding things. You really have. And as I joke all the time, the more you give, the more they want.
Yes.
Okay, and so where are you headed next?
Victorville, state, federal prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start on this Tuesday. I got to be there 7 in the morning, but I'm going to be working on having weekly dialogues with the men about life skills, and where it's going to start off with mock interviews and things of that nature, and help them be able to reconnect with the fabric of society.
So you're going in the lockup. That's really what you're telling us.
I get to go to prison and come home.
Come home. That's the best part. Yeah, they're not going to
watch the gates. The gates closing. Watch the gates. That's what they say.
They're not going to keep you. So that's the best news.
It's the best part.
Mm-hmm. You're going to go help adjust some heads that need to be turned around too.
Yes, indeed.
And I want to thank you too, because you've been doing this anger management with women in lockup as well.
Yeah, so I've been in CIW, California Institute for Women, since 2012.
Yeah,
and it's been very effective. A lot of them are home now. And,
yes,
it's really effective to see the ones who are successful. Mm-hmm. One of the young ladies just posted on Facebook that after 28 years in prison, 364 days of being home, she's getting her very first place, which doesn't mean a lot to other people who've been getting their places, but for her, this is her first. You know,
you mean her first living out,
right? Because she used to live in a gated community for 28 years, and she couldn't come out the gate. So,
yeah. So, okay. Well, I just want to make the distinction when you say she's getting her first place, she's getting her first home out of the gated community.
And a lot of them used to call it home.
Yeah.
When they moved from one unit to the next, they'd say, "Well, let me go home."
Yeah.
And that's really sad. So I'm grateful that she is understanding having her truly her own.
Well, you know what? You've done amazing things, and thanks to you and the work you've done, I've met outstanding women that you've mentored too, and I see that Shanae is one of them, and she just had her first child.
Yes, little beautiful baby with no teeth. You see that little gummy bear?
Yes, so Shanae's been busy, and her and Petra and who is it, Kelly? Do the anger management at...
Kelly does domestic violence. She is the domestic violence expert.
Right.
She is an expert by default.
By default,
because she couldn't take it no more, and she had to...
To be fair to Kelly, kind of ran in the family, too.
Right.
Okay, she wasn't the first one in that domestic violence.
But the domestic violence could take someone's life.
Yes. Oh, my God.
And what's sad, and I was just... sharing with the poetess, is that some of the ladies who retaliate after getting abused for so long, they are the ones who end up in prison.
Right.
And as Kelly did, end up 15 years in prison for killing her husband, who was abusive to her. So, everything is not always cut and dry, black and white, and life isn't fair. So I'm just grateful for all the ladies and grateful that they continue to do the work now that they're home.
And you know what? No offense to Kelly or any woman that was battered. She had enough, and she handled that business, and bless her heart, she didn't walk away from it unscathed, and they put her in prison because of it. So she served her time. She took the abuse. She handled that business. She served her time.
Right. So what I like to do now is to get ladies and even men to recognize warning signs. You know, it's just like if I'm sitting at the railroad tracks and the arm starts coming down, the lights start blinking, I'm not going out on that railroad track.
Right.
You know, because I recognize the warning signs. So it's the same thing in relationships. There are warning signs, but a lot of women think they could change the men. A lot of men think they could change the women. And
well, you know, women have that thing. If you love me, you wouldn't hurt me.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and we do forgive that because we have that extra in us that's forgiving. And, you know, after so long, you know it's not a joke. He's not going to change, and that's the reality that Kelly came to know. And, you know, several women have had to find the truth that he doesn't love you if he's going to do you like that. Right. He does not love you. That is not love. So we're going to do a thing on domestic violence, but not tonight. Right. Okay. And we always start by thanking our guests from last week, and we really want to send a particular thank you to Frances Williams because it was her first time on this show. It won't be her last time, but Barbara Hughes brought her, and Frances' son was killed 2 years ago. Okay, so his death is still fresh. Still fresh for her.
And she's steadily working. Frances is everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're grateful for Frances.
I find these ladies very remarkable. I really do. It takes a lot of strength to do what you do. And so we've asked LaWanda. I forced LaWanda to come back and bring some more ladies with her.
Thank you.
LaWanda doesn't sleep.
When you see Barbara, give her my love. And please tell her to give me a call because my heart goes out to her. Yeah. And two of her babies were murdered. And that's just like...
It's crazy. Her first son was 15. They caught his killer. He was 16. Her second son was just killed in 2016. And a grown man working at Cedars coming home in his work scrubs. And... somebody just killed him. He wasn't guilty of anything. He wasn't gangbanging. He wasn't involved in anybody's tragedy. Just a man minding his own business, and the shooters just took the opportunity to kill him because he was out there by himself. And so, you know, we expect the police to arrest. This is one thing that we demand from them, that they find the shooters of our children and arrest them. And for years, they've allowed the street to take care of the justice. For years, they've allowed the street to handle the justice. But here of late, they've been finding shooters. They've been finding shooters, and they have been arrested, and they are being prosecuted. So we really want to share that good news with our community that doesn't hear a lot of good news.
Oh, yeah. South Bureau is really doing a lot of arrests. We're hearing a lot of parents coming in saying they're making arrests in their cases.
Yes.
Before, we didn't hear that in the meetings, but now we're hearing that. I can't think of the detective name. I think his name is Gada or something like that. They love, because when they get their cases to him, they're more than likely your case is going to be solved. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something about this guy. He's putting the extra into it. You know who I'm talking about?
Detective Garza.
Okay, so
introduce our guest first.
Okay, go on.
Yes, well, my name is Deborah Thomas Brown, and I'm the mother of Alton Kyle Lee. May he rest in peace. My 32-year-old special needs son that was gunned down multiple times in the torso on 84th and Broadway in South Central Los Angeles.
When was he murdered?
Where?
When?
Oh, on the 4th of May this year.
This year. Mm-hmm. That was just a month ago.
Yes.
This is just June. That was just May.
Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so new.
Yes.
We want to be very sensitive about this.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And you're allowed to say anything you want to say about this. If there's any information that you want to share, have they found any information, that kind of thing. But before we ask you that, let's introduce our other guest.
Yes. Okay, my name is Brenda Tippins, and I'm the grandmother of Keyshawn Fredericks, who was attacked while sitting in the car May 8th, 2014. Mm-hmm. So my case is unsolved, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I try to make us understand as a people These are the faces we really need to be paying attention to right now, and the faces of our children that are caught in this dangerous element. And it's something I can't convey that message. It's not enough for me to say it. It has to be shown. Folks need to see you. They need to know that this is real. That this is real. That this is not a joke. These mothers are not playing with us, and certainly not when their children are murdered in such a malicious, senseless way. So, LaWanda, I want to thank you for bringing the two ladies. I want to thank Barbara Hughes for bringing Frances last week. Her daughter came and her sister came, but they didn't want to be on the show. So we got a picture of everybody, which is what we like to do at the end, get a group photo. And one day, I believe those photos are going to mean something. Show the faces of those who cared enough to come and talk to us about this. So why don't you start, if you feel like you'd like to start. Tell us a little bit about your son and as much as you want to share with us.
Okay. Yes. I had brought an obituary. My son was actually gunned down after this young lady I was learning about on the news that was gunned down on Western. You probably know who I'm talking about.
You're talking about Hannah Bell.
Hannah Bell, yes.
Your son was killed in the same time frame.
Same time frame. She was killed first, and then, like I said, on May 4th, my son was gunned down. And this is a picture I have of him. I'd like to share that. And it's just real unfortunate, senseless, ruthless. We just gunned him down. And I don't want to say anything to compromise the investigation.
Yes.
But, there is information that I now have, but I don't want to share it this time.
That's all right. That's all right. We're very sensitive about that. And
where did it happen at? Tell them.
Yes, it happened at 84th and Broadway. And I actually drove up to the crime scene and, didn't realize it was my son. I let the officers know, that who my son was and who I was and that he was missing. And I know he had ID on him and everything, but they didn't tell me at that time. And then I drove around up on the 83rd side and came up to 84th on Broadway. And I actually saw his body laying there. And I didn't realize it was my son at the time. But later on is when I got the news that it was indeed my son, and who suffered with mental illness. As I said, he was special need. Chronologically, he was 32 years old. And he was a regional client. And very special, very precious. Wonderful son who didn't deserve that at all. My only son. Yes, in fact. So, anyways, his name was Alton Kyle Lee. May he rest in peace, as I said. And if I may, I'm going to announce what we're doing. We're going to have a candlelight visual on 89th Street and Broadway at 235 West 89th Street on the 6th of July at 4 o'clock. Okay. Yes.
Is that his birthday?
No, that's his kind of around the anniversary time of when it happened.
2 months
so
after
that's
it happened.
Yeah, because we understand the voting took place like June, like a month later, which is what I would have rather, but it just went into July, and that's why. That's around the anniversary time. And I have something I'd like to say, because I would like help from the media in getting a reward posted for my son. As I said, who has special needs. I would like help in promoting mental illness awareness.
Oh.
And that he did suffer from mental illness. I would like help in promoting to stop the gun violence. I'm connected with organizations like Mothers for Justice of Murdered Children, my good friend LaWanda Hawkins. I'm connected with Justice for Children, Loretta Hunter, and some others. My son, Alton, was a client with South Central Los Angeles Regional. He's affiliated with CHAD, South Bay Mental Health. He was an outpatient from there. And LA Child Guidance and others. Now, because of my son's untimely and senseless death, I am definitely a part of the cause, and I am now striving to provide resolution, change, and awareness all over the world. I would like to extend the community at this time to get involved with the cause and help make change. I need your help to reach out to the president and other various governmental agencies, schools, churches, social organizations, etc., to help make awareness throughout the community, our community.
All right. Let me also say, because I promised that I was going to make an announcement because it has my full support, Assemblyman Mike Gibson is doing a call to acknowledge the violence that we're having, and what he's asked is that our families of murdered children, murdered victims, bring that child's shoes.
Shoes?
Bring his shoes. Bring her shoes. And we're going to set them out around the street so people can get a visual idea of how many children that have been killed in the Los Angeles community. That's scheduled for Friday, July 13th, from 6 to 8 on Manchester in Vermont. So we want to encourage our families to come out and support this because it's against, we're trying to send a message about gun violence.
Yes.
All right?
Good.
And this is not with the NRA and assault weapons. This is for the handguns that have killed 90% of the young people in our community, and all of them are unregistered weapons.
Yes.
That's my biggest concern, that we have all this gun violence, all these guns in our community, and none of them are registered weapons. So when you talk about the NAFTA movement and the NRA, they're not including that. They're not including that in their dialogue. We're not going to be played with. We're not going to be caught in the middle of anybody going after the NRA and assault weapons when we have so many handguns free in our community. So, Brenda, I wanted to bring you in this conversation, too.
Okay. Well, it's sort of, you'll have to first ask the question of me because there's
I want you
so
to tell
much.
us a little bit about your grandson.
My grandson, Kishan, was only 17.
17.
He was running for prom king at the time he was murdered.
What school did he go to?
He was going to, he hated school, but he was going to.
Well, what 17-year-old doesn't hate school? I mean, he just got in his peer group.
Right, I had him going to the alternative charter school.
Okay.
To make up his credits in order to graduate. But he was a very caring person. He was a boy, of course. 17. When was he murdered? He was murdered May 8th, 2014 in Inglewood, on Inglewood and Plymouth. And so it's been very hard on me and my family. Yes. We've had, he left behind a 14-year-old brother who have really taken it very hard. But we're trying to adjust, and I'm trying to hold on to be strong. But Kishan, he was always giving in the neighborhood. Anybody could come up asking for money. They knew he had money because I would make sure he kept some in his pocket. And if he didn't have it, Grandma, you got to have $5. I'd look to see who is around here this day. Or I would have to, if he's giving people bus fare or buying pizzas. Doing what grandmothers love to do for their grandchildren. Yes. Spoil them a little bit. Right. Make sure their pockets aren't empty. If they want pizza, we can do that for you, baby. Right. I know. And so that, that he was known for being generous to people who he felt needed something to eat. But let me ask you, there hasn't been an arrest in his case? There hasn't been. I just keep hoping it's... I had a little stroke after his murder. That's understandable. That's understandable. Yes. I wanted to ask you about his brother. Is anybody seeing about him? I am, because the dad, who is my son, have held on very tight to the brother. and afraid that the same thing would happen to him.
Right.
So in holding on, it hasn't allowed him to grow to his potential, holding on so tight. And that's one of the things that's hindering our community. When we hold on and our kids have the post-traumatic stress syndrome, right. The parents, right. The neighbors are all afraid.
It's vicarious trauma.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
It's vicarious. We all get it.
Yes. And so he's having a rough time, but fortunate enough, I was able to kind of get a little help for him as far as a youth bereavement organization.
Yeah. Mm.
And for him to open up. He hadn't cried too much since the murder of his brother. Mm. But at the camp that he attended for bereavement, of kids' bereavement camp, he was able to break down and cry and kind of share with the others who had lost loved ones.
That's what you were telling me about for my friend Marcus's daughter. Yes. So a friend of mine, Marcus, he was just murdered in Inglewood. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
I'll come right back.
Good.
But he was murdered outside of the bar and grill. And we went out there and we were going to do a candlelight vigil. But before we could even start, Brother James Farmer had said something about how prayer brings us closer to God. The little girl started crying. Mm-hmm. We couldn't even start. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I cut you off because it was aha moment for me.
I'm
I lose my thoughts sometimes. I'm sorry.
But I'm comfortable.
That's very important here, right. Is that the siblings are traumatized too.
Yes.
And nobody is really taking them in or opening the door for them the way they do for the moms. And I'm not offended because they're doing so much for the moms. Not at all. They're not doing enough. Okay? But the siblings seem to just get left behind to figure out what they're going to do with this, what it's done to them. So that's excellent to know that he's in a place where he can open up and talk about that. It's very important that they have an avenue to express that.
Real quick, sister.
Go ahead.
Gloria, friend of Vicki Lindsay's.
Gloria,
her 19-year-old son was murdered. Mm-hmm. She said the first thing she did was sent her daughter to go live with her father. Mm. Because she wanted to not ever be so attached to anyone like that ever again.
Right.
So she sent her daughter away. Now, how do you think she's trying to deal with my brother's gone and my mother's sending me away?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. That's a whole nother
really
conversation.
Right. And then not only that, what I've experienced with the family, all of my I have 7 grandkids. I still count Kishan. And they were all close because I was the babysitter on the weekend, and I raised Kishan from birth up to his murder. But they were so close that after you could look or mention his name or say the wrong word about what caused his death, and it caused a total separation for a minute from 2 of my granddaughters.
It triggers a reaction.
Yes, that domino effect.
Yes.
And so people who are doing these things, and I hope I'm not getting off the subject or too far off, that they're not realizing the harm that they're doing to the family and the friends, the community. My son, if I might say, the dad, I received a call around 4 o'clock in the morning from the police department, and they identified themselves and that they had my son, who had stopped in the middle of an intersection, and all he was doing was crying. In the middle of La Brea, where Highland turned off down there.
Mm-hmm. Just in the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street, and he was crying, and so they asked if I could come and get him. They didn't cite him or anything. But when I got there, my son was standing there. All he could do just cry. And it took him the 3 years, it's been 4 years now, it took him that long to really break down.
Yeah.
And so when you see your family going through things like that, and especially when you're raising kids not to hate, not to be envious of what the neighbor or anyone else have, but to make them decent human beings, you wonder what is going on, and that's been a real challenge for me.
In fairness to you, these kids were born into this violence. They didn't create it. It was here when they took their first breath. 17-year-old. He wasn't here long enough to be guilty of anything. No. He's just trying to find his way. Same way the 3 15-year-olds that have me off of my stride here, Hannibal, Lamarion Upchurch, and Manya Jackson, killed. Those 2 young men were killed first thing Mother's Day morning this year. 3 weeks after Hannibal was killed at the hamburger stand on a Friday night. So these are the kind of traumas that we've been through as a people, as a family. You imagine Hannibal's brothers missing her, no answers for what happened to her, no answers for why, and the murderer is still loose.
Yes.
This is the thing that traumatizes us, keep the trauma open. How can your, and I hate to put it this way, but how can your other grandsons heal knowing that his killer is still out in the neighborhood?
That's right.
Still out in the neighborhood. That is double trauma. So, when we talk to you, community family, about this is how serious this is. This is how serious it is. And as proud as I am that we have made progress, we still have 3 15-year-olds dead within 3 weeks of each other and no arrests. And the truth is, all 3 of them were killed in front of a bunch of witnesses. And we talked about that. That we have this thing about snitching.
Right.
And LaWanda and I talked about that the other day. Would you like to clear up that confusion about snitching versus a hero witness?
Okay, I just gotta say, when you stand up and you see somebody commit a crime called murder, you are a hero. You are a hero, and I wish law enforcement would create the hero program or something like that so people can understand. When you stand up and say, Johnny killed this person or something like that, or Johnny took my money on the playground or whatever, we got to stand up to bullies, and we got to teach our young people to stand up to it, and we got to teach them at a young age, because as parents, we told our kids quit being a tattletale, and we promoted this type of craziness. Now we got a problem. So now it starts with us as parents and teachers and law enforcement and everyone. It takes us to go back and be careful what we say about people who stand up. We have to call a witness. We don't want to hear tonight on the TV. We got to inform us or something like that. They shouldn't be saying that. They should be saying we got a witness. Yeah,
we have a witness.
But they said we got a whistleblower. Yeah. What?
And not a whistleblower. He's not an informant. He's a witness.
But it's from the top to the bottom. You got from the White House. Everybody is saying, and they're using words and stuff that's creating a problem on the streets, especially with this case called murder. Yeah. We have to come up with a way to getting people to talk. And I know as people say it's not cool to talk about this, but we have to come up with a way to get our kids to stand up and tell. Because if not, we all being bullied. And I'm not down with the bully game. I'm a fighter, and I ain't down with you bullying me.
Think about the system. A lot of people are not comfortable and have faith in the system, that the system will do right. Just as you said, whistleblower, this and that. Let me tell you what they do is any statement that is made, they put the name in the statement, who made it, and then they give it as evidence to the defendant. And then what happens is that gets to the prisons, that gets to the neighborhood, and when it has that person's name in it, well, you, your children, your sister, your family is subject to whatever ridicule, whatever violence, whatever traumatic thing is going to happens. And there is not a system to protect the people. It is not a system. So what happens is these detectives, these officers, want to make an arrest. They want to get a conviction. And sometimes they'll even throw in the wrong person. And they will ask someone, tell someone, I will give you a better deal. I know you were there. I'll give you a better deal if you include them in your statement. So now get this person 25 to life. Let this person get 15 years when this person's the one who really did it. So the faith in the system we have to change systemically everything that we do in this city, because me personally, I just don't have faith in the system to encourage people to tell. What I would encourage them to do is tell the parents. So when people come to me and say, whoop-de-whoop and them had a fight before the shooting and whoop-de-whooping, okay, don't tell the police. Go tell his mama, though. His mama needs to know the truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If we can create a system, because I trust the parents. I know that there's hurt that I can't put that void, that emptiness. I can't replace it. So I want the parents to know. I want the grandparents to know. But, I mean, we have to work out something systemically before we just start telling people, go to the police. And then they having press conference about the arrest they made, knowing that Sarah and them told, and Sarah's whole name is in this file, and now her and her children have to move, and... it's just...
It puts them at risk.
It puts them at risk. It really does.
Yeah, because there has been witness intimidation in this. There really has. There's been witness murder and intimidation, and that's one of the reasons why we have to have the sheriffs in the courtroom to protect the families that are there to get justice, because some of these guys are so...
ruthless.
They're just out of control. Just out of control with a sense of righteousness that doesn't belong to them. And then the fact that they want to protect their friend who has taken somebody's life by force. We won't protect the police when they take a life by force, but somehow we believe it's okay to protect the killer of our children. Really? Send them out of town, send them out of state, get them out of here.
Real quick, just about 4 or 5 days ago, I get a phone call. There's a shooting on King and Buttlong. And the young man that got shot, his girl is sitting in the car. And when he got shot, a little Hispanic girl was filming, and she started filming the car. The girlfriend of the guy that got shot told the little girl, erase that. Erase it. Don't show that to the police. Helped her dude get to the hospital and hey, we will deal with this on our own. That is the thinking. I just want to share that because that's the thinking. And, of course, they're in their 30s or late 20s or whatever. But that is their thinking. Like,
street justice.
It's street justice. Yes. Like, we're going to find out and we'll deal with it.
In the street way.
Right.
But see, and then that's when the wrong person gets killed.
Right.
Okay, you go around shooting people that got nothing to do with this. Right. Okay, so we don't support that kind of nonsense at all. And the truth is, if you survive somebody trying to take your life, you owe it to all of us, and starting with yourself to get them in custody. Because if they shoot you like that, who else will they shoot?
That's right.
Who else will they shoot? You see, so if you let somebody that shoot you go home and you haven't named them, well, then you're in collusion. You put yourself in collusion with an attempted murderer, and that's the way we have to look at it. I'm the witness. I'm not a snitch, and I'd like for you to explain the difference in the two, Skipp.
Well, the way it is, sister, you have a nice big porch. So if me and sister sitting on the porch and we see the Brinks truck pull up every day, 10 o'clock in the morning, and me and sister decide we're going to go in the back of the truck and take all their money, and if I get caught and I call sister and say, hey, they got us, they done called us, well, that's snitching. I done told on her, But if we're sitting on the porch and somebody is getting hurt across the street and we see him shot or stabbed or whatever, and I run across the street and say, sister, call for paramedics, call for the police. That's not snitching. That's helping the community. Now, if we decide we're going to hit the Brinks truck and I tell or she tell, that's snitching. But if we're going to help our community members, then that is not snitching.
So
that is saving a life.
If we rob the Brinks truck or go in the back, as you suggest, and I say, well, it was Skipp's idea, okay?
Well,
that makes me the snitch,
now
okay?
She's snitching, right.
Yeah, I'm the snitch. Just like if Skipp says, well, sister and I planned this together. We were sitting on the porch and the truck drove up. He's a snitch.
Right.
You see, the point is that we were doing the crime together.
Right.
And as his partner, I turned on him to save myself.
Right.
That's the definition of a snitch. But as he pointed out very clearly, somebody across the street getting beat up, needs a paramedic, he's running over there, hollers back, tells me call 911. We're not witnesses.
Right. We're
That's
not
the big
snitches.
difference.
So
We're
is
helping our
this
community.
I was wondering if this is the culture of quote unquote ghetto,
No.
or is it just a culture?
It is a culture, but it's not ghetto. It's got nothing
It's the
to do
mistrust.
with ghetto.
It's the mistrust.
It's
We have been
mistrust.
victimized by law
Yeah.
enforcement
Yeah.
for so long,
Yeah.
and a lot of times when they come in the house, it's our children. So it's our family members who are the suspects and the victims.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we turn on and off the time when we now trust the police? Because everybody I just said, even the two that the young man that got shot and his girlfriend, guarantee if somebody steals their car, they're going to call the police. You know what I
They
mean?
are.
So it's not the culture. It's when do we turn on the trust and turn it off with law enforcement? And that culture has to change. The culture of law enforcement has to change. They have to be a part of the community, and we have to feel that trust. Everyone doesn't feel that trust. So we got to work
But
on that.
also, the culture has to change where the young girl says, we'll handle this. Erase that video. Don't give that to the police. We'll handle this. We don't need her to be the vigilante.
Right.
We need that to start. That's the essence of retaliation.
Right.
You tried to kill me, I'm coming back after you. That's retaliation. There's not going to be any justice in there because too often the wrong person gets murdered. The wrong person.
Right.
You see, so when you set yourself up to retaliate, you can't guarantee nothing. You can't guarantee nothing. And so we want to discourage that kind of conduct. See, because when you retaliate, now you're the murderer.
Right.
Now you're the murderer.
Right.
He attempted to murder you.
That's why I say the victims and suspect come out the same house.
Yeah.
1 week you could be a victim, and the next week a
you can be
suspect.
a suspect.
So yeah, we have to change how we deal. And for me, the suspect, the person who's out hurting people, trust and believe he has a mother, a girlfriend. There is someone who is taking care of that person, and we got to identify it. Just like I said, the railroad tracks and the arm is coming down. These warning signs. There are warning signs that our children are out of control. And do we ignore them and allow our children to hurt other people's children who are not out of control?
Yeah.
Or do we intervene and do something? Because I would rather the intervention than the suppression and prison for
Right.
life. I would rather we intervene prior to.
Yes.
And let's sit down and talk about what are the issues. What's going on?
But we have to admit, some people are born murderers. Some people, no matter what we do, are going to be murderers. Yeah.
So I mean, at the
Some of
hospital.
them-
So Lawanda, at the hospital,
some of
this
them
lady
are like-
just had a baby,
And he's a
you,
murderer.
Okay.
I hate to say that. That little
All
demon
right.
that you did with that little
Beautiful baby.
I know.
Okay?
Just like some babies that you have, you know they're going to be doctors, lawyers, judges. You can tell some people have
You
it
can
in
tell,
them.
you can hug them.
Yeah,
Like,
but
yeah.
some kids, you seen them. You seen your child drowning the dog or choking the cat or doing like killing the fish. You seen the signs.
You see some
You
signs.
seen
Those are the
things
warning
happen.
signs, see?
Those were
Yeah.
things.
If-
So that's
if
what I'm saying. They
that
were
child-
born like that.
If that
And-
child
and you
is
have to deal with
raised,
them.
if that child is raised at home
Whoa.
by his natural parents, you see, because we just talked about Gloria sending her own daughter away. Who's going to fill in the gaps for her when her mother's so grief-struck of losing her brother? It's like, I don't want my daughter here. So who's going to see about that girl?
She don't want to love like that again because you're scared if you love like that again, your heart could be broken again.
Yes.
And that's a normal reaction for having a child murdered. You don't never want to feel that again.
Yes.
That pain you never want to feel again.
But what about the daughter? This
The
is who I'm
daughter,
talking
yeah.
about, the daughter.
That's when you have to try to make them understand it's nothing personally against them, that mama loves you, but she can't take that pain like that. That's a pain that it's just unbelievable.
And you know what?
she
I
has
understand that,
And
but
she has
here
to get
again-
some type of therapy for her daughter, too.
Yeah,
and put
the
her some
daughter,
grief therapy
yeah.
to realize that it's nothing against you, your mama got against you.
Right.
Because sometimes the mamas go in the room. That's why we do the Thanksgiving and Christmas, because sometimes the mamas go in the room during the holidays and they don't want to come out and deal with the other kids because
Right.
of what they're dealing with the hurt and the pain and
right.
everything. But we try to tell those kids it's not you personally, because they love the hell out of you. I mean, they love you more than life itself. Because you see how they acting with your sibling.
Yeah.
So if it happened to you, they would just really take them out of here. But they don't want you to see them crying like that. So that's why they in the room hiding from you and stuff like that. And that's why they're going through it. But I let them know that their parents do love them and that we got to do some fun things and don't take that personally. You know, what can you do to help that day? But they need to be in some type of grief therapy for teens and youth. And it needs to be pushed. And it needs to be pushed. But it's not being pushed because in our community, when we talk about therapy, it's like a bad... It's something bad. Right, but we don't understand. If we go to the doctor, if our leg is broke, we should be going to somebody if our mind is having some problems too. And it's okay. And everybody shouldn't be looking bad at you. It should be okay.
Well, you know what?
If people feel funny when you have a mental health issue or your kids got a mental health issue, people look at you a little bit different sometimes.
People look at us different anyway. You know, just it comes with our birthright. And I don't mean to make light of it, but it's a very serious issue. And I'm going to say this again. I love, and it's not enough, that there's a lot of attention to the mothers. But when it comes to the kids, as you talked about your grandson holding this for 3 years and just breaking down in the middle of the street crying, where the police have to come and get...
That was my son.
Your son, I'm sorry. His father.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's so much trauma here. It's so much trauma in here. And so when we talk about Gloria, and you know I love Gloria, and Gloria is still upset that her only baby was murdered. All right. But at the same time, you have traumatized your daughter with that separation. Your daughter's got trauma too. That's her brother. And instead of them hugging that together, you send her away. Who's going to hug her trauma?
That's right.
See, if mom's not going to hug her trauma, who's going to hug her trauma?
Her father.
Right.
Yeah, her father.
Right. And I think that was an absolutely right move. You can't deal with it, send her to her dad.
That's a good move because she needs to see a strong man in that position right now. And you need to see someone who's actually a strong man who's showing that, hey, I got you. I got you. You don't have to worry. Because sometimes when something like this happens, you think that, hey, I have no control. You're thinking that, hey, But if you got a man that she can hold on to, like a dad, to say, hey, I got you, boo. You can cry on my shoulder. You can sit right here. We can have popcorn on the couch. You can cry, and you can do your things, and dad ain't going to mind. I understand. Yeah. And
as
so
long
I think
as
it was
there's
good.
somebody for the daughter
think when she sent it to the father, I think it was a good move because the daughter needs to see a strong man. Yeah. And daughters need to have a relationship with their dads.
I agree about that 100%.
Now, don't bring the mic back. Bring the mic back. I want to hear more about these demon children we got in the hospital. How did we determine that these is bad kids? Because I done had a lot of kids, and I could look at them and tell. I couldn't.
Some kids you can tell that there's some bad kids, and we all went to school, and we all seen kids in our classroom. You cannot tell me some kids in your classroom you couldn't say this kid was a bad kid. That I knew he wasn't going to be right when he grew up. I knew you was going to do time, boo. I knew it. I could have told your mama. If she didn't know, the rest of us knew. We were sitting
I was one of them, though.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
I was the one.
But
most
you
likely
don't look like you ever scared anybody, Skipp. You were just crazy, but you don't strike me as somebody that was terrorizing in your conduct, or the way you carried yourself.
But see, our government trained people to kill. We have to keep it real. We have a government that trained people to kill. Yeah. And some people, they feel are better, and they put them in higher positions because they are real good killers. Yeah. And it's in them. So, we got to, there are some kids that are, no matter what we do, no matter what programs we put them in, no matter how many jobs we give them, how much money, they are going to kill. It's just in them, just like a dog with blood.
Well, and I don't know if I can agree with that all the way.
Come on.
Because that's sort of hard for me to accept.
Yeah, it is. Identify that baby at birth. You're going to be a killer.
Next time I'm going to have more kids, too. And next I'm going to call Luanda. As soon as the baby's born, I'm like, come on.
Tell me which one is the killer. Come on. Tell me which one. Is it because he got a big toe?
Let's look in the window.
I would just like to say, I have a daughter. My son was my only son. And I have a daughter, and I mentioned this in the group, that very mental. And I'm just wondering, where could I send her? Because I'm having these moments as we speak, where I don't know what to do, where she's concerned. And it's very, very
And how
Oh,
old
that's her
is she?
brother.
That's her brother.
That's her brother. Your
And
son,
how
her
old is she?
brother.
She's 26. She's so
Yeah.
special until
Yeah.
she had a similar incident that happened with her boyfriend.
Oh.
He was shot and killed right where we live,
Oh.
and he died in her arms.
Mm.
And
See?
it just set her back. Because at first she was a student, she was doing real well,
Yeah.
and then that just was setback after setback, and then now this. And so it was so hard until I asked her therapist, who was already engaged in coming out and all that, working with her. I asked her, could she come out as I shared the news about her brother? And you can just tell the way she processed was very, very different. And I've been waiting for her, you know. And
You
it's
mean
been
the
sitting
therapist
out.
processed it differently, or your daughter?
My daughter
Yeah.
processed
Yeah.
the death, hearing the news, all that, very differently.
Was her boyfriend was killed first, and then her brother?
Yeah, and then years later, her brother. And then there's been some other deaths right in a close proximity.
That's
right in our
called
community.
recurring trauma.
Recurring
where
trauma.
it's no
Yeah.
time for rupture and repair, because before she could repair, it's another
Yes,
rupture.
That's another.
It's just recurring, and
And it's just been so many. I mean, I could probably give you about 10 names, like back to back, just like right in close proximity of various deaths, hit and run, shootings, and, you know, just different things. Close childhood friend, you know, right across the street, shot and killed. You know, it's just so much.
But you know, my one of my kids, the trauma was so hard that they wouldn't step out of the house. I shared
Yeah.
this with LaWanda. Someone looked at them, they couldn't accept it. They were thinking people were watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally, it was so much paranoia going on there that I and the family kind of coached them to move out of the state for a while to kind of get over it. But upon their return to home, I was busy. I've been busy volunteering and getting and trying to stop the violence, working with LaWanda. She began to see some of the things that could occur. So there was a healing process that went on, and I agree with you, Skipp, that you have to have some time for healing
Yes.
to get over, and the traumas can be so close. Nature hasn't taken hold of the situation.
Our bodies don't really have the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way is to express that hurt, to get it out, to talk about it
Yes,
with somebody that understands
I agree.
What's happened to you and how devastated you are about it. And so, you know, this is our prayer for all of our families. All of our families. If we stood with so many, it's just a shame. It's a shame. And you know, we care about your family. We care about your daughter, just like we care about Gloria and her daughter,
Yes, of
too.
course.
You know, this is an ongoing thing where we need our women to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Your best therapy is right here in this room. And that's something that we found through trial and error over the years, that you have just an automatic empathy and understanding from who's in the room with you. And that's what made that so powerful, Kathy's Mother's Day bruncheon.
Oh,
To have all the
Yes.
mothers of murdered kids there, and then to welcome new members. And that's what you told me. They were new members inducted that day, but it didn't mean that all those children were killed this year.
right.
So that was a very important distinction in that, because there was so many. And sadly, Hannah Bell's mom, Samantha, was among the new members, and she had just been killed. Just been killed.
Just
So,
like Alton.
Yeah.
Just been
Yes,
killed.
just been killed.
Just like Alton. Just
Yes.
been killed.
yes. So I don't know. Sometimes I just have a loss for words.
What do you want to tell about the mental health? What's going on with your daughter? What's happening with her right now? Is she violent right now, or is she? What's going on with her?
She's just in ways, just different things. I can't explain. She needs professional help.
She's
And I just say,
traumatized.
yeah,
She's
just-
traumatized.
Yeah, she's just.
Does she suffer from mental illness before the
Yeah,
death?
it's already in effect, and then now
Right.
it just makes it just worse. You know,
Right.
it's just worse.
Are you talking to the therapist and stuff like that? They got on the medicine and she...
Well, let me just share real quick, because talking with the therapist and having a moment, maybe an hour, 2 hours of some sort of peace and tranquility, and then I leave the therapist and I come home back to the same environment. She said across the street, my best friend's across the street was murdered. I'm coming home and my brother is not there because he was murdered. So no matter what you do, you could even give me a pill, you can give me a shot of something, but when that's over with and I come home, it hurts. And I'm already, not thinking properly, so it hurts. So these are like Band-Aids.
Yeah.
This is a Band-Aid. So how many Band-Aids we going to give our daughter?
And then I live in a close-knit family setting where it's all family. And she's acting out so badly until... I got family, they actually, I think they hate her, and they just, it's just, I'm dealing with all this. I'm dealing with just stuff on top of stuff.
One of the
you
things...
think the death is enough, but it's not. It's just...
One of the things that Brenda just said is, getting away. Yeah. Sometimes I might have to get away. I might have to go somewhere where there's, and just not come back for right now.
Right.
So there might be somewhere that she might want to go, might be a family member in Louisiana where the nearest neighbor's a mile away. She get out there and get to fighting raccoons and stuff and take her anger out on a squirrel or something. No, seriously, I'm laughing,
right.
But seriously, if you got family members that are out in Mississippi, Louisiana, and let her see a different way of life and let her know that God has given us good land and good food, good fruit, and and everything isn't what we see on Broadway in Manchester. Right. Because whether you're on 89th Broadway or 84th from Broadway, it's sometimes it's just not good. So I believe we got to show them something else.
Whether she's in Mississippi or right here in Los Angeles, she's still traumatized.
Yes, indeed.
And until we address the trauma, relocating her, she's going to take the trauma with her. It's still unresolved. It's still unresolved.
Right.
And this is really where we have to get amongst ourselves and figure out if we're going to leave our dead children lying in the street and let their murderers go home, then what do we do with the trauma that's left behind? What do we do with that, family?
Well, we can't take a bath and put on the same dirty clothes.
Yeah.
So if I had $1 million and I get the best help for your daughter, still, when I take her back to that environment, I just gave her a bath and put on the same dirty clothes. So there has to be a system of change, change of mentality, change of attitude, but also change of environment.
Absolutely,
it just has to be for me in order to be right. If not, y'all try it tonight. Y'all don't tell nobody, but go home and take a bath and put on the same clothes and tell me what you think. Tell me if you're comfortable with that. No, just don't tell nobody. Just do it to see if you're comfortable.
And we are making light of this, but it's a very serious issue, and everybody cannot be relocated. We'd love to send them to a place where it's peaceful and beautiful and calm and there's no fear, there's no threat. But we live in the real world, and threat for us is a constant. It's a constant. And I agree with you, Skipp. I'd love to send them out to another place.
Not all of them, just the daughter right now.
But multiply her by 1,000 kids.
Right.
See, that's what I'm looking at. I'm not just looking at her daughter. I'm looking at all of them.
But there are things that do help, because you can tell about how did they start changing, Brenda? How did they make them change? How did they change? What made them start coming out a little bit more?
When she jumped up and moved to Las Vegas, and she got an apartment alone, living alone. And she felt a little bit more, even though there's a lot of crime go on in Las Vegas, she felt comfortable walking down the street.
Right.
In the middle of the night. She felt comfortable coming from work.
So she found her little niche.
She found a little job and all. So we tried to keep her there.
But we want our kids to stay wherever they're doing well. That's
wherever
really
there is peace.
Yes.
Wherever there is peace.
Wherever there is peace.
That's what she was saying.
Yes.
Sometimes it may not be where you're at maybe someplace else. You got to find it because I can't say where your peace is. Everybody's peace may be someplace different.
Right.
But you got to find that, help her to find that peace.
Right.
Because it has to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
that
the
takes
point
therapy.
is,
It takes a lot
has to
of work.
be addressed.
Oh,
it
yeah.
has
Right.
to be addressed.
Oh,
We
yeah.
cannot just
Because you could wind up being a victim of law enforcement killing you.
Yeah.
Or you could become a killer too. You can hurt yourself or hurt others.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
if you don't get the help. Yeah,
Right.
you'll wind up becoming you.
Sister, you got to give them a minute or so to
Yes.
leave your last words. What do you
Yes.
guys want to leave the audience with? If we could start down here.
I'm just kind of at a loss for words. I'm just kind of
all right.
lost in, the moment of what I should do with my daughter, because I know that this has impacted not just her but my whole family very much.
Yes.
And I'm just doing different things to help keep his legacy alive because he was such a good, loving person, human being. He was a humanitarian, and the funeral was just great. It was just really superb. Hearing the various wonderful things that everybody had to say about him, because he was just, special need, and Jesus, I mean, it was just so beautiful,
And this is so fresh. It's not really fair to ask you to
Right.
say anything. Anything, Mom. Nothing, really. Brenda, do you have something you want to say before we...
The only thing I can say with my feelings and where I was at the time your son, when it was new, is that I had to learn to take care of myself. And, that's very important.
Yeah.
And I had to realize, and I'm not trying to harm you in any way, by no far means, but I had to realize and admit that his memories are going to be there naturally. You don't have to try to keep him alive because he's going to be here all the time, but just to take care of oneself. And that's all that I can think of for now without going into preaching.
And I want to second that. You have to take care of yourself first. Before you can take care of your daughter or anyone else, you got to take care of mama. You got to take care of yourself, Deborah. And just pray for your daughter.
Yeah.
You got to take care of yourself. If you got to lock yourself in the room by yourself and let her be outside the room knocking at that door.
Just let her know you love her.
Yeah.
You ain't
Let her
mad
know.
at her.
Right.
You love her, but right now she's in a place where you can't help her. But your honesty is the best thing you owe her, is your honesty. And one thing is that you love her. The second thing is that she's in a place where she's doing crazy stuff that you don't know what to do. Okay, so just give her as much honesty and love as you can. That's my suggestion. But God bless your community family. That was a fast hour, and we're out of time already.
Keep your head to the sky, ladies.
I want to thank you, ladies, for coming tonight. God bless your community family. Gang Talk will be back next week.